Guten Tag, and welcome to the Armchair Commanders podcast. My name is John, and with me I have Air Jack. How's it going?
Jock. I'm doing very guten Tag. Thank you for asking.
I so for this week we reviewed the 1990 epic Revenge of the Red Baron, which, if that doesn't seem familiar to you, that's because, well, it wasn't actually that popular or good.
But it was a classic all the same.
You know, I might
No,
incorporate this. I might incorporate this movie into my yearly watch list now.
What time of year is best to watch this, John?
Hmm.
Oh, fuck.
I think the fall. I think this is a good uh October movie. Very Halloween esque.
What makes you say that?
I mean, it's a movie
Well,
about
yeah, now that I said that out loud, it's.
the
Man, I can't.
spirit of the Red Baron hunting down his former nemesis.
Man, I can't believe Chucky ripped this movie off.
I know.
The
6 years
gall.
beforehand too.
I know, right? They stole the script. That's what they did.
So when we discussed this 2 weeks ago. Um, when you first saw this trailer, what was your reaction?
What, like, my first question was what the fuck, but that's obvious. My second one was what insane fan of ours escaped from the mental asylum to send you this trailer. But then I figured out the mental patient was you.
I am indeed that mental patient. See, YouTube does this wonderful thing where, like, you have your usual shit you watch on YouTube. Mine happens to be like World War One and World War Two documentaries. Like, I love the channel The Great War with Indy Neidell. Like, that's a
Oh, I love that
fantastic,
shit.
yeah, fantastic channel, great series, like super informative. They did a day by day breakdown of the
Yeah,
war for four
I
years.
I
Like,
remember that.
that shit was intense. I also, I follow some of the individuals that we've had on as guests before, like JD from the History Underground and the Tattoo Historian and whatnot. So my YouTube feed is very history focused. Well, I originally was going to suggest Small Soldiers
Hell yeah.
last time we met, because that was actually a movie I loved as a kid. Like, I had a ton of the Small Soldier toys. Like, I had a Chip Hazard action figure, like a 12-inch one that like said all his catchphrases. Um, but when I was doing that, I started looking up, highlights or clips from that movie before doing like an actual sit down, and the YouTube algorithm did its thing, and it was like, hey, you like history and also toys coming alive. How about this obscure 1990s film about an RC airplane being inhabited by the spirit of the Red Baron? And I was like,
What?
I was like, first I was like, what? And then second I was, you have my attention.
My favorite part of the trailer was like the narrator saying, "The family comedy of the summer," as the character's loading a gun in fear.
It
Like,
was
this is prob this is probably one of the most tone deaf movies I've seen in a long time. Like the cheerful music playing over attempted murder.
I'm super conflicted because, like, this checks all the boxes for a horror film, but because of how tone deaf it is, it just comes off as a comedy, and you're like, is it meant to be a comedy or is it meant to be a horror? Like, it's a very shitty horror film because it's not actually scary, but
Man, yeah, it just couldn't decide what it wanted to be.
I will say the comedic side of it made for some terrific one-liners.
Spencer, you turned my world upside down.
I haven't seen a night like this since Dresden.
Making a joke about the Dresden firebombing when he wasn't even alive for that.
That also, it makes me so curious. Like, how did the director decide to allocate funds in this film? Because like our
Drug money.
so we have some actual great moments of like practical effects and special effects. Like we get like a gas station explosion that looks like really legit, uh like on par with any kind of other action film. um there is multiple dogfighting scene, like the beginning and the end, where we see actual dogfighting between World War I airplanes, like real airplanes, and you're like, oh, this isn't going to be that bad. But like, then you also have moments where it's like the RC airplane looks like it's being marionetted through a house,
Which, yeah.
or like there will be like there's an explosion in that introductory dogfight scene, and it looks like, I know this is going to be a really specific reference, but the arcade game Area 51 from like the late 90s, where it had like live action actors as your enemies, but all the surroundings were CG. It's like it was that, but flipped, where like the explosion was CG, but it was very two dimensional against a three
Yeah.
dimensional background. So
Yeah.
I found it very, it was inconsistent in that manner.
Man, to think Mickey Rooney actually shot down the Red Baron.
I love Mickey Rooney's character in this. Like he, like it's very kind of over the top, exaggerated acting, but everything in this movie is. But he's very close to like a Cotton Hill kind of character. Like, I killed 50 men.
I
I
killed the
shot
Red Baron.
I shot down the Red Baron. Ah!
Which, reminder, to this day, we still haven't figured out who killed the Red Baron, so it very well could have been Mickey Rooney. Well, actually,
It definitely wasn't Herr Spencer because there was no Herr Spencer. Okay.
you don't know that.
Herr Spencer.
Okay,
Um
okay, so maybe Mickey Rooney was born a couple years after after the real Red Baron died, but never let details get in the way of a good story.
what is your preferred theory on who killed the Red Baron?
You, you
Oh.
killed the Red Baron, you fucking asshole. But
I mean, I destroyed some Red Baron pizza earlier.
I remember there being a rumor that someone shooting at him from the ground got him, and I find that highly implausible, but possible. And there was like two other air pilots at the time or something. There was a lot of different witnesses, and he said, she said. But wait, what am I
Yeah,
doing? I have the age of the internet to help me.
yeah, so one of the pilots that most of the time gets credited is Roy Brown, who, if I remember correctly, I think he was Royal Canadian Air
Air
Corps,
Force, RAF, RAF.
RCAF.
So RAF, Royal Air
Oh,
Force.
not, he wasn't Canadian, just
I don't think
English.
so.
Okay. Um, but
Oh
if you
wait, wait, wait,
look,
wait, 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 wait. He was born in Canada, but he served under the Royal Air Force.
okay, so
So
that's where
I
I
don't
got
know,
it.
man.
That's where I got it confused. Um, which is interesting because like for the longest time he was credited with it, and like a lot of history books still more or less say, yeah, this is the guy that was in combat against him when he died. But there's a theory of like, it's weird to me that they can narrow it down to like three or four ground machine gunners that they might believe it is, just because of how large of a conflict World War I was. But I I remember reading uh, an article about it, and one time in an interview, Roy Brown was asked, he's like, do you think you shot the Red Baron down? And he's like, it doesn't matter. Like, all the evidence is out there for people to decide for themselves, which is either the most like
That's a
I'm
cop
like
out if ever I heard one.
it is. I'm lacking the context in how he said it, but it's to me that's like one of two things. Either he's like, no shit, I shot him down. You can go look it up, or no, of course I didn't fucking shoot it, but my opinion doesn't matter. You know?
Yeah, Australian machine gunners on the ground fired at Richthofen, who eventually crashed near the Australian trenches. Brown's initial combat report was that the fight was with Richthofen was indecisive. So who the fuck knows? Modern historical consensus suggests that Australian anti-aircraft gunner Sergeant Cedric Popkin is the person most likely to have been responsible for the shot that actually downed the Baron. But he was he was 25 when he died. And I actually did some reading today at work on him because I'm a great worker that does his job.
As we all are.
And from what I can deduce, he was actually a fairly sociable guy. And not not explode a fucking gas station with people inside it kind of evil. But, being dead for years, it messes with a dude.
Where do you think movie Manfred von Richthofen went after he got shot down? Do you think it was like some sort of weird purgatory thing?
I have no
Like,
fucking idea. I thought it was like a time thing that transferred his soul but destroyed his physical body. And then he
oh,
just,
just like an immediate type deal for him?
yeah, like that. Like
Hmm.
I'm I'm sure he knew he was dead, or at least died for however short, and then he just respawned from what he can see instantaneously. That's my guess, but maybe there's a special afterlife for World War One flying aces.
It kind of reminds me of that Twilight Zone episode where the World War One pilot like flies into a cloud, and when he comes out of the cloud, it's like 40 years into the future for him.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
it's
and they think he's a spy.
yeah, but there's no change to him, so maybe it's something like that.
Hmm. How does that episode end again? It's been years since I've seen that one, but I know the one you're talking about. It's based on a real life account.
So so basically he's like, you can ask my friend Lieutenant so and so, and he's like, you mean General like so and so? And he's like, because the whole premise of the story is he ran into the cloud because he ran away from a fight out of like cowardice and left his buddy to die. Uh, and so in like his like saving grace moment, he's like, maybe if I fly back into the cloud, like I can do the right thing and save him. And so that's what he does. And then like the general walks into the room, he's like, that guy died 30 years ago. So
Uh,
it was a very good episode.
so that's how he dies. He goes back in time and dies saving his buddy.
Mm-hmm.
That's very touching, actually.
Right?
Right? Where's it going with this? Um, but yeah,
How
like I don't know why he was so evil. Like maybe he did spend time in hell or something, and he learned from his cellmates. But
I think I think it's because that's how we usually like a we have a tendency to to demonize whoever our enemy is. Um and like World War One's a great example where like there's not really a wrong side in World War One. It's just, you know, a bunch of aristocrats on one side teaming up against another group of aristocrats on another side and sending, millions of people to their death over it. So like the whole right and wrong thing is really convoluted with that war, but we still have to like if you're fighting the war, you have to believe like, yeah, I'm here to beat the baddie. So you already have the the whole, this is the enemy, he is a bad person thing. But even after the fact, I mean, take a look at like the Peanuts cartoons. You, I know it's a silly comparison, but
No,
like
I get where you're going with this.
we have, I mean, school children that read Sunday morning comics. I don't know if anybody actually does that anymore. I know I did when I was a kid. As I still read the comic section of the newspaper. Um, I don't know now that all the newspapers are on the fucking internet, but um, man, that was a really old man thing of me to say.
Boomer.
I know, right? Um, but you have a very popular like kids cartoonist who has an entire series of panels where one of the main characters is hunted down by the Red Baron. Is like, what kind of dickhead would try and kill Snoopy?
Yeah, but the gotta portray the Germans as cartoonishly evil.
Right. I think the other part of it is now that I think about the whole Snoopy thing, um, mid 2000s. I forgot what studio did it, but they came out with a video game for PlayStation 2, and it was called Snoopy versus the Red Baron. And I played the shit out of that game.
Did you ever get him?
Yeah, that's the final boss is you shoot down the Red Baron.
Ah,
But even in that, it's still very it's still all, imagine if the Peanuts movie was a video game. Like that's the kind of vibe it gave. But even then, it was very cartoonish. Like, yeah, not today, Snoopy.
Snoopy. Did you know that in Germany the Snoopy's name is Schnuppenhound?
No,
Schnuppenhund. I don't actually know if that's true. I just made that up, but
you know what? That sounds right. I work with a person who immigrated from Germany. I'm going to have to ask them that tomorrow.
huh? I didn't know you had a German coworker.
Oh yes, I do have a German coworker. I also have a Russian coworker, and yeah, that's about all I can think of off the top of my head. That's kind of not the average uh, immigrant to America. I
So,
suppose we do. I suppose we do have a few Kenyan workers where I'm at too. So
so just curious, does he have a great uncle that lived in South America for a while as a quote unquote refugee from the war?
I haven't asked them that.
Christ. How about does the Russian coworker ever send anyone to the gulag?
No, surprisingly, no.
Has he made any capitalist pigs or propagandists disappear?
Not that I've noticed, but I mean, that's just if I haven't noticed, that means they're doing a good job.
If he sends you to the gulag, pro tip: get various Soviet leaders' faces tattooed on your body. Soviet law says it's illegal to desecrate their visage, so
Hmm.
prisoners would tattoo their faces on their bodies so the guards wouldn't hit them.
That's interesting, but also very smart.
I actually don't know. I actually don't know how accurate that is. I mean, they still got the shit kicked out of them, but the guards had to be more careful. The prisoners,
By
however, had no such compunctions.
by that by that metric, I'm screwed because I'm definitely going to get the spirit of the Red Baron to hunt me down now because I have flying a Snoopy tattooed on my arm.
Oh yeah, you're screwed. All the times you killed him in that video game, he wants to get revenge.
Yeah, and I didn't even get Snoopy because of the video game. A, I just like Snoopy, but B, it was my dad has the exact same tattoo, so I was like, huh, here's a little
That's
nod
right.
to
You
you.
you told me about that. Oh man, that's adorable.
I know, right?
I wish I could track down my dad after he left me 20 years ago to buy those cigarettes so we could get a matching tattoo together.
Just comes back with like a semi truck of cigarettes next week.
I even have my favorite quote by him tattooed on me. I ain't your paw. But anyway, speaking of that, I had lunch with Frank today, and he was screwing around on Chat GPT when we figured out it has a speech option now.
Oh.
And but one of the things we asked of it is, what are some slurs we can call Gungans? And then it was like, fictional racism is just as wrong as racism, and blah blah blah. And then he was like, okay, give me a list of slurs that someone in universe might use that they hate Gungans, but then they reevaluate their life. Okay, and then it gave him a whole list of slurs for Gungans, like bubbleheads and marsh. Hold on, I gotta look it up. This is great. Um, Water waddlers, pond dwellers, reed rustlers. That's my favorite one. Marsh mumblers, bubbleheads.
Bubblehead sounds the most problematic out of that list.
Because they live in underwater bubbles. But
right.
Anyway, when we were done being racist, or at least fictionally racist, I asked the speech option of Chat GPT, let's role play. You're my dad coming home after disappearing for 20 years buying cigarettes, and you're here to tell me how proud you are of me. And it was actually pretty good. Son, I know you're mad at me. I haven't been in your life recently, but I just wanted to stop by and say how proud I am of you. I'm like, thank you, Daddy. Also, listeners, I'm just kidding. My dad never actually left me for cigarettes. A, he doesn't even smoke, and B, he's actually a decent father, and I love him.
Shout out to you.
Big ups to you, Pa. Love you. But anyway.
Does he even listen to us?
Probably not, no. Probably too
fair.
busy working cows.
More like fucking cows. Ayo!
Fuck you. But I asked him one time, I was like, hey, Daddy, can you listen to my podcast? And then he threw a liquor bottle at my head and said, shut the hell up. I wanted a son.
I didn't want you. I wanted a boy. I'm going to call you Good Jack.
Once again, I'm kidding. I just love making those jokes.
Speaking of fathers, I found the father in this film very interesting, and honestly,
why is that?
It's like just super abusive. Interesting choice. Tobey Maguire did not deserve the treatment he got from his father. Granted,
no.
Tobey Maguire was a fuck up and did need to, straighten up his, shit. But at the point where Tobey Maguire is framed for his father's murder, I was like, can anybody really blame him if they saw these two interacting with each other?
Honestly, no.
I was like, I'd kill him too.
Like,
disclaimer, I would not kill my father or my fictional abusive father. I would not
he legally has to say that, folks. But anyway, like, that whole plot line's never resolved. Like, in the eyes of the outside world, he very much killed his fucking father. And it gets worse too, because they sent him to like that juvenile detention facility, and then like 2 or 3 workers were found dead, and he broke out that night. And hours later, there's a kerfuffle with gunfire at his house.
Okay, but at least here's my thing. At the psychiatric facility, there's surveillance cameras, because that's how the doctor notices that one of his security guards is hurt. That means at some point they will have to see the fact that there's an RC plane flying throughout the inside of their building shooting people, which I feel like that's a question that lots of supernatural / horror films never answer, is like, what is the the fallout or the after effect of this, because could you imagine like CNN, like you're flipping through channels and all of a sudden you see like CNN or Fox and fucking Wolf Blitzer is up there and is like, ghosts have been confirmed after a 30-person killing spree and a gas station was blown up. Like, would you not lose your goddamn mind?
Oh yeah, dude. The whole unveiling of the supernatural world. It's a fascinating concept to me, and I wish more media did it.
I genuinely want I want a movie that specifically focuses on that. Like the first 15 minutes is like the normal last 15 minutes of a horror film, and then the other 2 hours is just like people dealing with the revelation that like, oh yeah, there's this weird murdery guy in a lake that comes out once a year. You're just gonna have to deal with
So I think I've brought up Shadowrun to you before, and I'll find any excuse to talk about this because it's one of my favorite tabletop games. But in their world, December 21st, 2012, instead of the nothing that happened in our timeline, in their timeline, that's when magic came back to the world, right? And like rituals that previously did jack shit actually started doing things. Um, Ley lines flickered back on. Magic came back to the world, and people were like fucking tossing fireballs around. Next thing they knew, media loses its goddamn mind because magic is real. Holy crap! And then 9 years later, or 8.5, or something like that, on no April 21st or something, 2021, 10% of the world grew horns and fangs, and like their entire muscular and skeletal systems reworked so what that 10% of the world is orcs and trolls. And just when people were getting used to magic being around, there's fucking orcs and trolls now.
it. Well, I mean, if you've already dealt with processing magic, I feel like orcs and trolls is only a slight step.
Yeah, a lot of scared and confused people died in the ensuing race riots.
You know, speaking of scared and confused people, I'm trying to imagine being in Tobey Maguire's shoes
Oh
in
god.
this instance. Um, so like you start off with like Grandpa saying like, "Yeah, I shot down the Red Baron," and you're like, "Yeah, whatever, Gramps." Like it's just old man rumblings, and then all of a sudden you actually see like a RC airplane become sentient before you. Like I don't know about you, but I honestly don't know how I would react to that situation. I think I would actually be losing my mind.
Dude, I
Like
would be
I
inconsolable.
like and I love the fact that like as soon as this happens, like Grandpa who's 90 years old on heart medications and is already kind of like not 100% there to begin with it. Like he calls Tobey Maguire from the hospital after, the Red Baron somehow magically steals his fucking heart medications. Is like, we're
Magic.
looking for these. I have your Altoid tin of nitro.
Yeah, it
And
was an Altoid tin. They didn't even bother.
so they have to take him to the hospital where somehow the Red Baron again sneaks underneath his bed because they're like, why the fuck is this RC plane underneath the bed? I told you to throw this away. Like, there's already red flags there. But the next morning, Grandpa calls grandson and he's like, you gotta listen to me. Red Baron, he's alive. He's going to kill us all. And at first, Tobey Maguire is like, okay, Grams. But then his dad comes up and he's, waving a gun around. He's like, somebody broke into our garage. And he goes down to the garage and notices that the airplane is gone. He's like, huh, Grandpa's right. We're going to have to deal with this problem. I could not make that leap. Honestly, I could not. Like, if it was me in that situation, I'd be like, this is a weird series of events. This day's kind of fucked up, you know?
Yeah, like, oh my god, that's one hell of a day. I've had bad days, but they haven't been that bad.
I don't think my worst day compares to this.
Which kind of, but not really, leads me to my proposition for you.
Okay.
A sequel to this movie that takes place 30 years later, and Tobey Maguire's character has been in prison this whole time for killing his dad. And then the Baron returns. So so he must finish what was started 30 years. No. 110 years ago when his grandpa shot down the Red Baron.
Ooh, here's another great idea. Tobey Maguire, after the events of this movie, becomes an Air Force pilot himself. He then shoots down his own version of the Red Baron in like Iraq or something. And then like this whole shenanigans repeat with him and his kid. And the Red Baron and like the Iraqi Red Baron team up. It's the most racist film of the summer.
A family movie.
It is. I love that this is a quote unquote family movie. Like fucking gas stations exploding and like did it seem to you like that nurse in the hospital that kept giving grandpa shit? Like they just went to a Halloween store and got like a sexy nurse outfit.
That was like one size too small for her. The director did that intentionally. I just know it. But speaking of the nurse, there was so much porn level acting in this movie, but at no point was there anything remotely that looked like porn. Just the acting, aka the worst part of porn.
You're 30 minutes in, you're like, God, I hope Mickey Rooney doesn't take his pants off.
40 minutes in, you're like, why the hell hasn't he taken his pants off?
There is a lot of scenes with that level of acting, like when Bob from that '70s show, is the detective,
Bab.
and he's hitting on
Mom.
Tobey Maguire's mom, or like the nurse and the doctor flirting with each other. Hell, even like there's a couple of times where like just the way the Red Baron says his shit, you're like, am I supposed to be taking this another way? Like,
yeah, I thought that this was a porn movie podcast. You tricked me.
I bet we'd get more listeners if it was. Smut sells. So what was your favorite murder in this movie?
Hoofda. Like, I'm a big fan of the gas station explosion.
That was a very well done scene. Also, the lead up to it, like when they're doing the car chase, you're like, fuck yeah!
The car crash, too, that was just cinema. Pure cinema.
It's where they spent all their budget.
True Kino. Just primo Kino.
Personally, I was a big fan of the pool death scene with the dad, because like the entire time, I love the fact that this movie has at no point gives you a reason to like the dad. So like when he dies, you're like, all right, cool, we got that character out of here. But also just the method of death, it was so stupid. Like this RC airplane somehow picks up a bug zapper lamp and drops it into a pool as he's suntanning. And one, I'm not sure if that's good enough, like that amount of electricity with that amount of water is good enough to actually kill somebody. But two, it was just hilarious because it reminded me of like the one scene from Green Mile where the dude is like overly electrocuted, or like kind of like a cartoon where like you see a skeleton for a moment.
Just, yeah. And then at the end, they're all charred black and their hair is sticking up.
Yeah, and then the fucking like crony neighbor's like, oh, you better call the cops. He's finally doing it. He's killing them. Like, what? I hated the neighbor. Like, what kind of person are you?
A prick. I think Tobey Maguire said it best in this movie. What was it? Geriatric old piece of shit.
Decrepit old piece of shit or something
Decrepit
like
old
that.
piece of shit. Yeah, you get him, Toby.
The fucking Bob Hope wannabe. Like, he was always smoking a cigar and had that, like, carnival barker hat.
And I'll admit I was only alive for like half the 90s and I barely remember it, but is that how all juvenile delinquents' rooms look like? Just spray painted with random shit on the walls?
I mean, mine did.
No, you didn't.
You're right. I
You're
lived on a
way too.
military
I was gonna say you're
one.
way too straight laced for that, nerd.
I am too straight laced for that. I lived on a military base where they had like rules and shit, which is hilarious because my room was covered with lead paint, and the fun thing about lead paint, yeah, the house I lived in was built in the 50s, and was covered in lead paint. And when I was a kid, I had to get lead paint like lead poisoning tested every year. But the thing is like lead paint doesn't flake the way regular paint does. It's more kind of like got a rubbery texture. So instead of like if you pick at like paint that's flaking, obviously it comes off in little pieces, but rubber paint like you can peel
Peels.
it off, yeah, in like sheets, which is super fun when you're like 4 years old. Probably explains a lot of why I am the way I am.
It hadn't affected me none.
Mm-mm. No ill side effects from that.
Just,
Um,
nosebleeds and the taste of burnt toast in my mouth.
do you think the Red Baron's airplane was covered in lead paint?
Almost assuredly so. I mean,
It's
I'd bet
interesting.
money on it. I'm still
One
tripping.
or
I'm,
continue.
I guess I'm still tripping over the fact that he was 25 when he died. I mean, what have I done? Like, I'm 28 and I'm just a depressed library worker.
I mean, isn't that kind of a weird fate that many have gone through? Like, you take like World War II vets or whatever. Like, every now and again, a generation is called upon in their prime to participate in these massive conflicts, and like for us, because we you know at the age that we would have been able to or would have because neither one of us served, but like we've never been alive and old enough in a time frame where there was such a need that like everybody was doing it, like the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were winding down as we graduated high school. um So I think it's not necessarily fair when you think about like the Red Baron, the dude who was born into an aristocratic family, uh, you know, was a very good pilot and shot down 80 aircraft by the time he was 26.
So
But
what you're saying
also,
is I could have become a baron?
you could have. But also, that was the only thing he had to like. That was really his only option in his life at that point in time. I mean, obviously not the like being the best pilot of World War I, but the whole like being in the German military, that was like there's no way he was going to get out of that.
Oh yeah. Well, there was two ways: victory or death.
He chose death.
He chose death, and yeah, he went out in a blaze of glory. And look, over 100 years later, we're still talking about him. And he got his own movie.
Two movies actually.
Two movie. Well, even more if you count this Peanuts movies. But
Peanuts Halloween special.
yep.
Um I have his. What's crazy to me is at the age of like 25 he wrote his own autobiography.
What'd you say? Sorry.
He At the age of 25 he wrote his own autobiography. I have it up here on the shelf.
Cool. Like the original.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
of
not like the
course.
original, but like a fucking copy of it. Um,
Gotcha.
which I've always been like. I have the MMA fighter Ronda Rousey's autobiography, and I've always been leery of like autobiographies of younger people, especially people who are like in the same age bracket as us, because it's like I'm 29 years old, and granted, I'm not a professional sports anything. I haven't I haven't done anything that's won me a medal or anything of that nature. But like also, with the exception of like a few big moments, like how much life have they actually lived? That's worthy of that. Like I feel like somebody should wait till they're 50 till they till they do an autobiography.
Huh.
That's just a personal opinion, but
Also, your title reminded me of a point we somehow haven't brought up in 41 minutes. The mustard gas grenade.
yes, for those who can't see at home, my little subtitle thing is mustard gas because somehow I appreciate that this movie is like, oh, they like mom was trying to load a gun and she dropped a box of shells. The Red Baron picked up this ammunition and now can use his machine guns. Like, never mind the fact, like, hey, Grandpa, why'd you build an RC plane with functional machine guns on it? Go fuck yourself. Um, but at one point, he tries to get Mom, Grandpa, and Tobey Maguire to get out of the house. So he drops a bomb that very plainly has mustard gas written on it with umlauts over the U, which I don't know if that's correct or not. Probably not.
I don't think it is.
And it starts smoking, and it's like, did Grandpa also keep mustard gas from the war that he stole, or what? Where did this come from?
I, I just chalked it up to fucking magic. Like if you can't explain it, magic.
Right. It's kind of like it's one of those moments that can't be explained. Also, like, why is it whenever the airplane is flying or being carried by one of the cast members, the figure in the pilot seat is completely different than the close up we see?
Well, you see, there's some
Uh,
give and take with low budget movies.
Like one looks like a GI Joe figure, and the other one looks like a ventriloquist doll.
Yeah, it's very clearly two different dolls in different shots, but like I said, there's give and take. So I looked it up. The German word for mustard gas is Senfgas.
Hmm.
Senf is their word for mustard, I guess. So I don't
You
know.
know, you know what? If if this episode gets 50 listens, I will get a tattoo of a bomb that says mustard gas on it. Okay? That is that is the challenge to our listeners is to share this and our show. If this episode gets 50 listens, I will get a mustard gas tattoo.
Okay then, if it gets 1,000 views, I'll get a mustard gas tattoo.
Oh, I'm
I'm
so
aiming
excited for
high.
this. You're aiming high.
Well, I got
This is going
I
to
got
this is going to come out and then like it's this is going to weirdly have the same effect that Down Periscope did, and I'm going to text you be like, "Hey, we just got 3,000 views on this." And you're going to say, "God damn it."
I'll do it because I'm a man of my word, god damn it. If a man doesn't have his word, what does he have? What my question for you, what is a man if not the sum of his principles and convictions?
Titties.
He lives for nothing, and he will die for anything. He who has no convictions.
That's very eloquent. Who'd you steal that from?
I just made that up, but I think we're getting to that part of the podcast. What you drinking?
I am drinking some coffee because I'm still abstaining from alcohol at the moment. I'm
How do
drinking
you?
Risen Warrior Coffee from Iowa. It's a veteran owned business that does mental health awareness stuff. And I'm drinking their Southern Pecan Blend.
Ooh, proper pronunciation of pecan. I'm proud of you.
Just like mustard gas.
Mustard gas.
You would turn my world upside down. What are you having?
So, right now I am drinking a beer called Space Probe Blue, a blueberry sour ale from the Laughing Sun Brewing Co. in Rapid. No, Bismarck, North Dakota.
More like Jizmark, am I right?
Up top. Huh, they have a little writing. Um, the sun doesn't question, it doesn't judge, it simply gives life. Laughing Sun is our beer and your beer. Local brewery, local ingredients, growing community. Take Laughing Sun with you. I will.
I'm glad you chose such a positive beer.
No, I just got it because it's a blueberry sour ale. I friggin' love sour ales. And some exciting news on my part. I've been putting off playing Baldur's Gate for months now because I wanted me and the boys to experience it for the first time together, all four of us at the same time. And we finally all got it either today. Yeah, today. So I went grocery shopping for a special meal and I stocked up on beer. And God willing, I'll be playing it tonight and drinking.
I
Been
wish
waiting
you
a long
the
time for this. I'm excited.
I wish you the best for that. What'd you think of the game I sent you on Steam?
It looks interesting. It's the Ironclad game. Ironclad 2, American Civil War.
It doesn't look like the best quality, but I was like, for $2, I might as well.
I love the screenshots I'm seeing.
Yeah, I've seen some gameplay and it looks interesting, but like there's a lot of shit talking going on with it.
What do you mean?
Oh, if you just look up like even the
Well,
video, like the videos that are on Steam for it, like that are part of the promo, it's like YouTubers that are like, this is kind of shitty. So we'll see. But speaking of $2, I have to we have to talk about the formatting and availability of this movie because
oh,
I
yep.
I'm sure that when this episode comes out, people are going to see the title and they'll probably listen to this and be like, one, I've never heard of this movie, and two, when they go to look for it, they're probably going to experience the same thing we did, which is where the fuck am I going to find this movie? How do I watch it? Um, so there's two ways, dear listeners at home, that you can watch this. Uh, One way is the way that me and Jack we held a watch party for this on our Discord.
It was
Hint,
spectacular.
hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Go join our Discord. You can watch movies with us, or don't. I can see why you wouldn't want to hang out with us. Also, not offended. Um, and there's just one random YouTube channel that uploaded the full movie. Like, there's no place for you to stream this. Amazon doesn't have it. Like, YouTube Movies doesn't have it. None of that. It's literally just a random ass channel that uploaded it, and it's kind of a shitty like copy of it. Your other option is to do what I did, which is I went to fucking eBay and I bought the goddamn VHS for this, okay? And the VHS cost me like $6. And I swear to God, I'm going to Have you ever seen, like, those services that like grade comic books and stuff?
Appraisers.
Yeah. Well, they started doing that with like video games and videos. There's a really fun video I'll send you where these guys bought up like every copy they could of a particular really shitty late 80s, early 90s like sci-fi film, and they got the best one that they had graded, and then they videotaped themselves destroying every other copy because they're like, we want the most valuable copy of this shitty movie that nobody's ever seen. Um, I'll post that video to Facebook,
Wait, is
but
that by Red Letter Media?
possibly.
That sounds like something they did because they're trying to hoard all the copies of this one certain movie.
Right. But there is, I was shocked actually. There was no shortage of copies of Revenge of the Red Baron on eBay. There's both DVDs and VHSs, but I was like, this came out in 95, 94, 95. I can't remember specifically, but I was like, I'm going to watch this movie the way God intended.
Yes.
Uh, so I had a pre-screening before we did our Discord watch. And do you know how many fucking Goodwills I had to go to find a VCR?
How many?
4.
Wow.
Like the only time a VCR is popping up at Goodwill anymore is if like someone Mickey Rooney's age passes away and like their kids just take the estate to Goodwill. Man, that was really dark. So yes, for this episode and for this podcast, I bought a VHS and a VCR, and it almost brought a tear to my eye because it genuinely brought back some great memories of my childhood of like pop, that very satisfying like click click noise as the
Yeah.
VHS like drops in to the player. It was super satisfying.
And the FBI threatening you if you make copies of it.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to want to see this, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is not a good movie, but it is
It's
fun
a great movie. It's absolutely stellar. It should have swept the Oscars. Revenge of the Red Baron was robbed.
I'm surprised that Tobey Maguire has such a breadth of acting skill to go from Revenge of the Red Baron to being Spider-Man.
So much talent.
It kind of blows my mind that this was his first feature film where he was the lead actor. Like, could you imagine being an actor and your big break, like your agent calls you and they're like, hey, we got you a summer blockbuster film. It's a comedy, air quotes. And you're going to be starring alongside Mickey Rooney, and like another Hollywood legend. And you're like, fuck yeah, what's the movie? It's this movie where a Red Baron puppet is hunting you down and tries to kill you. It's kind of a ripoff of Chucky, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're going to ignore that.
Yeah, just imagine being a Hollywood executive smoking crack and seeing this movie like, that's our next Spider-Man.
I want to know what the pitch movie or the pitch meeting for this movie was like.
It really gives me hope for the movies I've been in,
I just imagine some executive ripping a line of coke off of a model airplane and being like, do it!
Do it! We can write off the box office losses as profit.
That's some tax shenanigans. So I have an idea for the rating of this film, and I want to run it by you.
Go ahead.
And when this movie first starts off, like the first 20 to 30 minutes, this film does a decent job of actually like staying consistent and like actually like making things make sense in universe, because you're like, why the fuck is the Red Baron in spirit inhabiting this airplane? Oh, well, Grandpa A shot down the Red Baron, and then he collected pieces of the shot down airplane as souvenirs, and then turned those pieces into the RC airplane, and then they fly the RC airplane during a thunderstorm, and magic happens. Like all that in horror movie land, that tracked for me. Uh, but I thought that was a really like the whole him taking pieces of the original airplane was a really nice nod to a very common practice, which is war trophies. Um, if you Google Red Baron crash, you can see his airplane uh, after a crash, and literally it is just the frame. Like because within like 15 minutes, like every soldier anywhere remotely close to his airplane
Swarmed
had
it.
swarmed it and took shit off of it as a war trophy. Like I'm taking this home,
Yeah,
and
souvenir hunting.
it's amazing anything of it survived. But there is one confirmed piece. I think there's a couple of others, but the one confirmed piece I know is in a museum in England, and it's the engine from the Red Baron's uh, airplane. So I want to do a rating of 1 to 5 airplane engines.
You already know mine. I'm giving this a 5 out of 5 airplane engines. Not because of the cinematography, not because of the acting, not because of the special effects. No, none of that. This was a fun movie. I'll die on this hill.
It was this absolutely was a fun movie. I want to watch this movie again when I pick drinking back up. I'll you know what? The day I go back to drinking, I am going to get plastered on some rumplements as the Red Baron
Bro.
would have wanted, and watch this movie again.
Well, I'm getting drunk off Jaeger then. Oh, Jesus Christ.
So for our listeners at home, when
Wait,
I
wait, wait,
return to
wait.
drink,
Wait, counter idea.
listening,
Run Rumplements and Schnapps. That way they could be dead Nazis. Wait, that doesn't make any sense because this is in World War I. Fuck.
we
Um,
got we'll find a World War I drink recipe to come up with.
what did German soldiers drink for liquor?
Usually like schnapps.
Liquor in World War I.
I know the British gave out rum rations.
Oh, brandy or schnapps.
Brandy, ooh, very high class. Better yet,
So
I think when I return to drinking, let's do the next. Let's do another Red Baron movie. Let's do like the actual like historic attempt at being historically accurate Red Baron movie, and we can do schnapps or something or
hell
brandy.
yeah. Now that Baja Blast is back, I can make one of my favorite drinks. Literally just Baja Blast and what the hell is it? Jaeger.
That's I've never had that combo.
Yeah, Ba Jaeger Blast. That's just what I call it. I think it's good, but no one else
Okay,
does, so it's all
I'll
me.
I'll give it a try.
You know, it's weird. I don't like black licorice, the candy, but I like Jaeger. I can't explain it, nor will I try to justify it.
I'm always like 6 or 7 drinks in when I decide Jaeger's a good idea, and when you're 6 or 7 drinks in,
you,
Jaeger is the worst idea.
yeah, that's when it starts going down in both a bad way and a good way.
Yeah.
Mostly bad though.
So I I'm torn. I love this movie. I put a lot of effort into watching this movie. I love the concept of the film. I love the fact that there was an open-ended ending where there's a possibility that the spirit of the Red Baron could return again. Revenge of the Red Baron, Revenge Harder. Um, but it's a very 1990s film. Although I did enjoy seeing a bunch of 1990s shit and being like, "Oh, I remember." Um,
I remember.
but like the acting isn't that great.
No,
The
no, absolutely
cinematography,
not.
the
The
cinematography
non-existent
is
cinematography.
the special effects are inconsistent. Super cheesy dialogue, even though the dialogue is fun. Um, I like I said, I love the concept, but it's technically speaking not a good movie. But I 100% will be watching this movie again. Um, I'm going to give it two two engines and like three pistons off of an engine. So like two and a quarter.
You're a hater. That's what you are. You're just a little hater drinking your haterade.
I gave Glory 5 out of 5 last week, and putting Revenge of the Red Baron on the same pedestal as Glory or Saving Private Ryan just doesn't seem
Fuck Saving
really
Private Ryan. This is the peak war movie.
okay. I
You
this
were
movie
baiting
kind
me and I took it.
this movie I think it pushes the boundaries of what a war movie is. I still think it's a war movie
Well,
because we end and close with actual World War One like scenery, and like our main character is World War One soldiers. Um, I think that this is on the edge of a war movie.
but well, okay, it's more of a war movie than RoboCop, but I still accept RoboCop as a war movie because war on crime is still a war. But this literally took the intro showed a World War One dogfight. What more do you want, bro?
Well, I mean, Vietnam happened in Forrest Gump, but I don't consider Forrest Gump a war movie.
It's on our list though.
Is it?
Should be. I consider it a war movie
Okay,
for the
well,
most part.
we can watch Forrest Gump and have the
Well,
discussion.
and yeah, one of my buddies said he would be on for that, so I already got us a guess. So there's that.
Okay. I suppose Forrest Gump is more of a war movie than Star Trek Six.
Hey, fuck you. Don't you ever besmirch the name of those who gave their lives in the Federation War like that.
Okay,
A war that never happened.
I'm Team
No.
Klingon, but
Okay, Team Klingon terrorists, because the Klingons as a whole weren't the bad guys. It was like that one Splinter Cell trying to kick off a war. But anyway, and you said I have pick for next week's movie, right?
well, we need to hear Rotten Tomatoes first.
Oh shit, that's right. Look at me jumping the gun and throwing caution to the wind about our glorious storied traditions of the Red Baron. Come on, load, you pig.
For this episode, it should be pronounced fine.
Come on, you schwein. God damn it, it's not loading. My internet cut out? Shouldn't have.
Well, I can still hear you, so no.
What the hell's taking so long?
I'll pull it up.
So, want to guess the. Wait, you already pulled it up, but it just came up for me.
Oh, I haven't hit enter yet.
Oh. So, want to take a stab at the tomometer?
Critic 12, audience 74.
Nope, there is no tomometer rating for it because only one person's reviewed it and they need more reviews for it to be official. So I think this is the first time we've had a no score, but the audience gives it drum roll please 67%.
The one person who reviews it?
No, it has over 100 audience ratings, so that's the audience score is 67, but there isn't enough critic reviews for this movie for it to have a tomometer meter.
How do you get like certified as a Rotten Tomatoes critic?
I don't know. Like, I was under the impression that any asshole with a keyboard could become a quote unquote movie critic. That's what they do on YouTube.
I'm gonna have to dig into this. Maybe being like a podcast qualifies us. I don't know. I checked
Is that going to be our quote for the review? Fuck Saving Private Ryan. This is the definitive war movie.
Yes.
Oh, Christ on a bike.
Where's that damn grandson of mine?
I I said this when we were watching the movie, but I think it would have been really funny if the grandpa consistently fucked up the grandson's name. Come on, Billy, we gotta kill the Red Baron. What are you what are you doing, Stuart? We gotta get out of bed.
He's never going to stop. Not until all the Spencers are dead.
Also, how did
IMDb
they?
gives this a 3.3, by the way.
Yeah, I looked it up on IMDb earlier, but and yeah, I think they're all wrong. This deserves to be 100 out of 100.
Oh my fucking god.
I
Well,
need to write some angry letters to the Oscars board.
I was going to say, you're going to write your congressman about this?
Yes,
They're too busy banning TikTok to listen to you.
I'm gonna write my representative then.
What
Keep in
is
mind I'm
your
keep in mind I'm related to him.
I should write my representative. Dear Congressman, what is your opinion on the war between Tobey Maguire and the spirit of the Red Baron? Love, John.
Yeah, you do that.
Okay. Well,
Let's
that
go.
was Revenge of the Red Baron.
You're
I
damn
highly
skippy it
recommend.
was.
I recommend anybody go and watch this movie, whether it's the one
What?
rip-off copy on YouTube or VHS or DVD. Jack,
I
what?
I I recommend watching this movie with friends. Makes it all the
Yeah,
more better. Just take
this
it
is a
as it comes.
this is a great heckle watch movie.
Oh, absolutely. And that's like the deepest form of friend bonding. It's beautiful, really. And while we don't condone substance abuse on this channel, we certainly don't condemn it either. So I recommend drinking to this movie.
Uh, Official Armchair Commander's drinking game. If you're watching Revenge of the Red Baron, you have to take a drink every time someone says the word hair, like Herr Spencer.
Also, take a drink every time Jimmy's dad points a gun at him when he wakes up. It's only one drink, but that scene is hilarious. And no, I'm not exaggerating. That really does happen, people. And his dad has no sense of trigger discipline.
Well, this was a fun movie, but
Yes, it was. I loved it.
Jack, what is our next film? And I
I'm
swear to God,
glad you asked.
if you say Forrest Gump, I am going to kill you.
I'm glad you asked. I decided the next movie is going to be a Studio Ghibli classic, Porco Rosso.
I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah,
I've heard of it.
a World War One fighter ace turns into a pig, so he becomes a wing for hire bounty hunter or something. It's a war
1992
movie.
Japanese animated adventure fantasy film. You really just wanted to continue this whole World War One thing, didn't you?
Eh. The reason I picked it is because I've been playing a game that was inspired by it called Brew Barons, and I'm loving the game. And the creators said that was one of their inspirations was this movie. So I basically got to watch it now, right?
Yeah, I mean it's your choice. So next week, Porco Russo.
Also, definitely check out that game, dear listeners. It's a great game. It's called The Brew Barons on Steam.
Can do Buckaroo. Well, Jack, do you have anything else?
I do not.
All right. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, please check out some of our other episodes. If you would like some additional content from us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord under the Armchair Commanders. Please leave a review. The stars do matter. Until next week, I have been Herr John.
And I'm Air Jack.
And we will catch you later.
Bye.